The Galactic Council's research vessel, Xiphos 9, drifted silently through the void, its sensors locked onto a small, seemingly insignificant planet in the Sol system, Earth. The mission had been simple: gather intelligence, categorize its species, and determine whether the planet posed any potential threats to interstellar peace. But the moment the data files began decrypting, something changed. High Commander Vecrel, a seasoned veteran of countless expeditions, frowned as the first batch of Earth's biological records appeared in front of him. At first glance, the creatures of this world seemed primitive, furred, scaled, feathered beings, no different from those found on other life-supporting planets. Then, the reports from the Xiphos 9's biological analysis team came in. Vecrel leaned forward, his dark, ridged brow furrowing deeper as he scanned the findings. The words extreme resilience, biological weapons, and apex survival traits appeared repeatedly. He tapped the screen, pulling up one of the files. The image of a small, unassuming crustacean appeared, mantis shrimp. At first, it seemed harmless, almost amusing in its colorful exoskeleton. But the data told a different story. The mantis shrimp's limbs moved so fast they created shockwaves underwater, reaching the heat of the sun's surface at impact. The force was enough to shatter reinforced glass, and some species of the creature could punch with the speed of a bullet. Vecrel's second-in-command, Officer Dravos, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Commander, this creature is only the size of my hand." Vecrel exhaled slowly. "And yet, it can kill with the force of a plasma projectile." The chamber grew eerily quiet. Another file opened. Tardigrade. Vecrel's eyes narrowed as he read the details. Survives in boiling water. Endures absolute zero. Withstands radiation thousands of times more lethal than what would kill most known species. Can live in the vacuum of space. "They are microscopic," Dravos muttered. "But they can't be destroyed." Another file. Wolverine. Vecrel's exoskeletal fingers tightened around the edges of the holo screen. The Wolverine wasn't the biggest predator on Earth, nor the most physically powerful. And yet, the reports suggested that this small, mammalian creature feared nothing. It had been documented fighting off bears, wolves, even armed humans. Its aggression was unmatched, its pain tolerance almost non-existent. "This can't be normal," another scientist whispered. "A creature of this size shouldn't have this level of raw ferocity." Another file. Great white shark. Vecrel had seen predators before, but this was something else. The statistics made his stomach coil: sixth sense for detecting blood, capable of tracking prey from miles away, jaws strong enough to sever metal, and worst of all, never stops moving, never stops hunting. Officer Dravos' skin paled as he read further. "There are thousands of these things in the planet's oceans." Another file. Komodo dragon. A reptilian beast with a mouth full of deadly bacteria and venom, designed to rot its prey from the inside while it waited for them to collapse. Another file. Octopus. An intelligent, shape-shifting entity capable of problem-solving, mimicry, and squeezing through impossibly small spaces. Some had been documented escaping from enclosures, opening jars from the inside, and even recognizing individual humans. Dravos backed away from the console. "This isn't a planet. This is a biological nightmare." Vecrel's mind raced. How could such creatures evolve on a single world? Every file told the same story: Earth's lifeforms weren't just surviving, they were dominating. Each species had evolved with lethal efficiency, built to hunt, fight, and endure in ways that defied logic. And worst of all, these weren't even the dominant species. A sense of dread settled over the room. If creatures like these roamed the land and sea unchecked, then what kind of species had risen to the top? Vecrel swallowed hard. His fingers hovered over the final, locked file, the one marked Homo sapiens. A hesitation. Then, a slow, deliberate press of the command key. The last file opened. And what he saw next made his blood run cold. Vecrel's eyes darted across the screen as the final file loaded. He had already been horrified by Earth's creatures, the relentless hunters, the unkillable survivors, the biologically perfected predators. But nothing could have prepared him for what he saw now. Species name: Homo sapiens. Threat level: unknown. Possibly uncontrollable. The screen flickered, revealing pages upon pages of data, footage, and historical records. At first glance, humans seemed weak, no claws, no natural armor, no overwhelming size or speed. Compared to the nightmare creatures that roamed Earth, they should have been prey. They should have been extinct. But they weren't. Instead, they were the rulers of the planet. Vecrel gripped the edges of the console as he read further. Humans had no single evolutionary advantage that made them superior, they had all of them. They weren't the strongest, but they had weapons. They weren't the fastest, but they had endurance. They weren't the largest, but they had numbers. And above all, they had intelligence. His mandibles clenched as he scrolled through recorded footage. A lone human in the Arctic, surviving sub-zero temperatures with only the fur of a slain beast wrapped around its shoulders. A human stalking prey for days without rest, its endurance far outlasting that of any other predator. A human using fire not for destruction, but as a tool to reshape the world. Humans not just hunting creatures like the wolverine and the great white shark, but capturing them. Studying them. Learning from them. The room had gone deathly silent. Dravos took a slow step back, his voice barely a whisper. They conquered Earth. The planet of monsters. A deep, sickening realization settled over Vecrel. The humans weren't just surviving among these lethal creatures. They had dominated them. They had turned predators into prey. The footage continued. Humans had harnessed wolves as hunting partners, tamed horses to outrun their enemies, and even bent massive elephants to their will. Then came the most terrifying revelation of all. Vecrel's fingers trembled as he pulled up the final entry. Homo sapiens, apex predator of Earth. The last video file played. It showed a group of humans standing before a massive, scaled beast, larger than anything in the room had ever seen. A crocodile, nearly 7 meters long, its jaws capable of crushing bone in an instant. But the humans were not afraid. Instead, they moved with precision. One distracted the beast, another maneuvered behind it. In a sudden, well-coordinated movement, they overpowered the monster, wrapping its jaws shut and rendering it helpless. The file cut to black. No one spoke. Dravos broke the silence first. His voice was hollow, filled with something no member of the Galactic Council had ever felt before. Dread. If they can do that to the monsters of their world, then what can they do to us? Vecrel didn't answer. He couldn't. Because in that moment, he realized the terrible truth. The Council had spent centuries classifying planets, calculating risk factors, and determining which species were threats to the galaxy. But they had made a mistake, a catastrophic mistake. They had thought Earth was just another primitive world. They had thought humans were just another species to be studied. But now they understood. Humans weren't just survivors. They weren't just predators. They were something far worse. They were the masters of monsters. And they were watching. Vecrel stood frozen, the realization clawing at his mind like a beast lurking in the dark. The evidence was undeniable. Humanity had done the impossible, not by overpowering nature, but by bending it to their will. They had weaponized the deadliest creatures their planet had to offer. And now, the question that no one dared to voice hung in the air like a silent scream. What happens if they turn their attention to the stars? Dravos trembled beside him. We need to report this to the High Council. Immediately. Vecrel didn't respond. He was still staring at the screen, at the last haunting image, a human staring straight into a recording drone, smiling, as if they knew they were being watched. He slammed his fist against the console, shutting the display down. No, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. We need to quarantine this planet. The room fell deathly silent. Dravos hesitated. You mean enact a full planetary restriction? Vecrel turned to him, his expression hard. Not just a restriction. A full blacklist. No communication, no surveillance, no interference. His voice darkened. No species is to set foot on Earth ever again. The scientists exchanged uneasy glances. A full blacklisting was unheard of. It was a classification reserved for uncontainable threats, planets that were too dangerous to interact with. But never had it been used on a species that wasn't technologically advanced. One of the researchers spoke up, his voice quivering. Wouldn't that alert them? That question sent a cold chill through the room. Vecrel exhaled slowly. He had been on the front lines of countless planetary assessments. He had seen civilizations crumble under the might of intergalactic conquest. And yet, for the first time in his life, he felt something he never thought he would. Fear. If humanity ever discovered the existence of the Galactic Council, they wouldn't react with awe or submission. They wouldn't fear the unknown. They would hunt it. His voice was steady, final. We erase all traces of this mission. We delete all records. Earth is to be forgotten. His eyes darkened. And we never return. A deep silence settled over the room. No one protested. No one argued. Because deep down, they all knew. The greatest predators in the galaxy weren't out there among the stars. They were on Earth. And it was already too late to stop them.